have no idea if my sound's working or not. I hope it is. Let me know in the chat if you can. It's Saturday, March 9th. It's noon Eastern time. I'm Bob Harris. My mouth is moving. Can you hear my words? That will be my hope. The chat. Hope everyone's doing well. Hello, Mr. Scampers. Somebody holler if you're not hearing anything. Everything looks like it's working, right? Everything looks like it's working except StreamYard doesn't seem to think my microphone's working, but everything else says it is. So you tell me. Oh, look, Wendy says we hear you. I'm good. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you, Wendy, early. I appreciate that. Good Lord, it's always something. It's time for the weekly Ask Me Anything live stream. That's what it is, right? Now that we have all that squared away, it's always got to be some nonsense. Before we get to the questions, FootballGuys.com is the website. I appreciate you coming here every Saturday at this time, except next Saturday. I'm going to be out again. We're going to talk about my last week's absence of vacation, vacation briefly. Hit the subscribe button and the notification bell if you previously completed those tasks. You can like me or not. I'm like all over the place again. Like, I feel like one day I'm going to do all this right. I feel like I've done nothing but rotten live streams for like the last month. Anyway, so dislike if you feel the need to. I'm also here on Wednesdays. If you missed last Wednesday, Adam Harstad from Football Guys, the 2023 Fantasy Football Writer of the Year from the FSWA, was on. It was a great show. We had a great time chatting it up and kind of talking processes. Hi, Dame. Thanks for coming, everybody. Yeah. You'd think I would have this figured out by now. You'd think. Like, everything says the microphone's working except StreamYard, where everything comes through. It says it's not, but apparently it's lying to me. So I appreciate that, StreamYard. Glad I'm paying that portion. So missed everybody last Saturday. I was supposed to be in St. Thomas for a wedding. The wedding went on. I did not. There was a medical issue, not mine, my fiance. So without going into too much depth, it was better that it all happened here rather than on a Caribbean island. Everything's fine. Everybody's fine, but we missed the wedding. So next Saturday, we'll be going to the reception. Linda is fine. Thank you for asking, Wendy. And recovering nicely and everything's good. It was like, just the kind of medical emergency that crops up. There's some apparently organs we don't necessarily need that are sometimes want to come out. So they chose not the best time, both the best and not the best timing, right? Thank you, everybody. She's doing quite well and hopefully going back to work this week. She's had enough of my nonsense. And then we'll head to Tucson. It's her son. You saw him here in the chat before the wedding, and Mike. And the wedding went off. Mike and Ashley, congratulations. And we'll see them next Saturday when we go to Tucson. For the wedding reception for everybody who couldn't go to the St. Thomas. So there's that. That was exciting. It was an exciting week. made for an exciting week. So yes, everybody's doing fine. Everyone's doing well. And now here we sit on the edge of the new NFL league year. We all know what's going on. I see the questions coming in. We'll get to all those. And thank you, everybody. I appreciate that. And so does she. She's doing quite well. I'm like, she has the best care provider on earth. Okay, maybe not. And next week I'll be totally worthless because the NFL free agency begins. The legal tampering period opens up on Monday at noon Eastern time, and it runs through Wednesday at 3:59.59, and then the official signing period. So lots of deals will get done over the course of that tampering period, and then they'll be executed. And, things can happen. So there'll be, things will be reported and most likely will be done. But we've seen in the past, like Frank Gore, kind of pulled a switcheroo on us at one point. Morning, Slade. Good to see you. Appreciate you coming. Yes, there is a bell. I did purchase a bell, everybody, so that my fiance could ring that sucker when she is in need. But she's up and moving around, so we're in good shape. But yeah, so the league year is upon us. Lots of stuff coming out of the combine. My Football Guys regular weekly column, the Fantasy Notebook, will be out, I think, late Sunday night. It's mostly done. We'll talk about some of the things on there. Every week I'm doing a piece on a coordinator. This week it happens to be the Chicago Bears. I'm doing it in alphabetical order. So I did Atlanta, So I'm kind of running through the ranks of them. So now I'm to Chicago. So there's some interesting storylines in Chicago. It's funny how Justin Fields has gone from the domino that had to fall to get the ball rolling to like almost off the radar. I mean, is there a legitimate trade interest in him? Probably so. But second or third round pick. Is he going to be a starter? It seems likely not. There's been a couple pieces out there. I know the Athletic, Zach Rosenblatt, did a piece where he predicted, some of the outcomes of these situations. He has Justin Fields as Deshaun Watson's backup in Cleveland. Russell Wilson being a backup to Anthony Richardson in Indy as well. So, and Russell Wilson, who was released this past week, right? And, we're informed he'd be released. He's made trips to New York to see the Giants. He's visiting Pittsburgh right now. The Raiders are said to be interested. Other teams will be interested as well. So we'll see how that plays out. Kirk Cousins now is the big domino that must fall. And it seemed like there was some serious momentum pushing him towards Atlanta, or at least having him land in Atlanta, with Arthur Blank being the primary pusher of this, right? Like, local reports emerged that Arthur Blanks really wants to get this done right, have a good quarterback in place. And it makes sense. It's a good scheme for Kirk Cousins. It's the scheme he's in right now, in Minnesota. So returning to Minnesota is not out of the question. Could happen. But seems less likely. He's not going to get fully guaranteed money. And that's kind of the thing that, if you talk to people who, study this closely, Kevin Seifert from ESPN did a good piece. Like, Kirk Cousins has always been about maximizing his value. That's how his decision process has been. That's why he's earned $230 million over his time in Minnesota. Every contract has been guaranteed, fully guaranteed. They're not going to guarantee it this year. They've got a Justin Jefferson contract to get straightened out, and it's not getting any cheaper. They would like to get that done. Having Kirk Cousins deal done would help them in that regard. Also, having a rookie quarterback would help them even more, as we've seen many teams take that route, right, to Super Bowl success, or see teams. Those are the two paths right now. You have a rookie quarterback or a young quarterback on a rookie contract that allows you to build around him and get great pieces, or you have a super high priced quarterback and you cobble together pieces around him. And we've seen teams be successful with each of those approaches. Most recently, though, the Kansas City Chiefs, with $500 million invested in Patrick Mahomes, and they've had a great deal of success. So we'll kind of see what path Minnesota takes. Right? Are they going to pay up for Kirk Cousins? I mean, Justin Jefferson would like Kirk Cousins to be back on board, but also Justin Jefferson realizes he made a handful. He fared pretty well with a series of lesser quarterbacks last year, including made a whole group of guys look like, Josh Dobbs, who comes in and kind of tends to look good, over the course of time. But Nick Mullins and Jaron Hall looked okay for a brief moment until he didn't. But I think the thing I've learned over time, and you've heard me talk about it before, is that, quarterbacks do not necessarily the receiver make. Yes, you would like an ideal. Hi, Mel. Nice to see you. You'd like a great quarterback situation, but it doesn't have to be a great quarterback situation for a great receiver to excel, or even really good receivers to excel. So going back to Chicago, it seems almost certain they're going to do Caleb Williams with the first pick overall. My colleague at Football Guys, Steve Salami. By the way, go to Football Guys. There's all kinds of good stuff right there. The Football Guys Draft Guide 2.0, the updated version with all kinds of cool stuff that you didn't get in version 1.0. Now, you have to be a Hall of Fame subscriber or elite subscriber to get the 2.0. The 1.0 is available free throughout, but if you want to check it out, go ahead and check that out. But if you're a subscriber, 2.0, updated scouting reports, the RAS scores, relative athletic scores, updated rankings, more players, and plus everything you got in version 1. And there'll be a third version out as well. So check all that out, footballguys.com/rookie guide. You can get that anytime you want, be a free one. And then if you're a subscriber, get the updated version. So Wendy wants to know, do I think the Bears move Fields? I don't. Yeah, I think they do. But what they get for him, they're not going to get a whole world for him. They would. Here's their choice, right? You can move that first pick overall and get a large pile of capital in return, and hope Justin Fields is that guy. So I spoke with Hub Arkish a couple weeks ago on the Die Hard show, and he really said glowing things about Justin Fields. Like, couldn't say more about him both as a leader off the field, his study habits, his athletic ability on the field, his willingness to work, all of those things are great. The thing that's not great, he's not proven to be a great passer yet. I think people feel like Caleb Williams is obviously, they feel like that he's that. The generational talent talk being, that you hear. There's a reason for that. So I do think Cecil Lammey said after he came back, my buddy from Football Guys, after he came back from the combine, that, however it plays out, I mean, Caleb Williams is the number one pick overall. Could someone move up? Ben Standing from The Athletic, I talked to him a couple weeks ago. He, clearly Sam Howell is no longer the quarterback of the future there. So he talked about, is there a world where they land Cousins? Yes. They might be in on that. Is there a world where they move up? That seems like it might cost too much to move up. So I don't know if that's going to be the case. But obviously the Caleb Williams, Cliff Kingsbury connection. Kingsbury was a offensive consultant for USC last year. So we draw those, kind of connect those dots. I think Caleb Williams is a Chicago Bear, and I think Justin Fields plays elsewhere. That's how I think it ends up, Wendy. And where that is there a starting destination for him? You look at the teams that need starters right now. I mean, Pittsburgh doesn't necessarily need a starter. They want somebody to compete, though, surely, with Kenny Pickett. And maybe they want a starter, and they just can't say it. Do the Giants want a starter right away? I mean, they're invested in Daniel Jones for a year, but they need someone to start eventually. Sounds like they might go the draft route. Atlanta seems to have become disinterested. Maybe he comes back on the radar. So the reporting, I believe it was yesterday. I want to say ESPN. It was Jeremy Fowler? Yeah, Jeremy Fowler came out and basically said, that it seemed like Atlanta was all in and willing to spend the money. Now they're being a little more budget conscious, it seems like. So that'll be something to watch on Cousins. Cousins is going to be expensive. So that's the domino. That's what we're all going to be watching Monday at noon, is what's going on with Kirk Cousins. Because once he goes, then a lot of things are going to move. There are a lot of players, lesser quarterbacks, like a lot of teams, as I'm sure we'll hear, are going to need quarterbacks. The New England Patriots among them, Royal Slade. We've talked a little bit about this. Do you want the rookie? Would you feel better? I mean, there's been some talk about Jacoby Brissett. How would you feel about that kind of as a bridge player? I think he's kind of been an overlooked, asset. It's not super high end, but pretty competent. Could he hold them over if they draft a quarterback? And, maybe they do both those things. Maybe they land him, Brissett, and draft somebody. And I know Jaden Daniels would be a big departure from the way they've gone in the past. Maybe they're looking to start anew. So the quarterback position is the position to watch, because I'll bring up for the latest free agent list, because it's not great, right? At the other positions. I mean, there are going to be plenty of people available, right? But a quarterback, you've got Cousins, Baker Mayfield, who I think is going to remain in Tampa Bay, but Atlanta is said to be interested in him. The Patriots are said to be interested in him. Russell Wilson making the rounds right now. Sounds like, you have to believe the Raiders, if they're interested, would be a fine destination for him and give him 2 shots at the Denver Broncos every year. But once you get past that group, and I don't know, I think that Cousins, Mayfield are the two that are super desirable. You have Wilson, Gardner Minshew, Ryan Tannehill, Joe Flacco, Jacoby Brissett, Jameis Winston. Could he go back to Denver? Tyrod Taylor. Who else? Josh Dobbs, who is good for a brief period of time. Drew Lock. And then you're into the Mason Rudolph, Marcus Mariota, Sam Darnold. I've heard people talk about him. Like maybe it's time for him to have a Baker Mayfield-like rejuvenation to his career. There's no doubting the arm talent. Can he land in the right spot? So plenty of guys there. The wide receiver market is narrowed now with the top guys off the board. Michael Pittman got his tender this week. Mike Evans got a new deal this week. We had T. Higgins previously franchised. So you got Calvin Ridley, Marquise Brown. Gabe Davis is going to be highly coveted. Michael Thomas is about to get released. Tyler Boyd, Curtis Samuel, Odell Beckham, DJ Chark, Darnell Mooney. I'm checking out Mike Clay's latest chart for these names. The tight ends have been diminished lately. Hunter Henry re-signed, and the other pieces that have re-signed there kind of diminished. There wasn't a lot there, right? You had Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith, Zach Ertz, Dalton Schultz all got deals this week. Dalton Schultz and Hunter Henry were pretty much the premium plays of this class, and now they're gone. So we're down to seeds and stems, people. we're looking at the, who do we have left? Noah Fant, Gerald Everett, Logan Thomas, Mike Gesicki. Gesicki, it hurts me to even say his name. Will Disley. Fire that dismissal, people. Irv Smith Jr. I mean, then you're in the dregs. Hayden Hurst, I don't think will play again, so he's been released by Carolina. Then running back is where all the the big names remain, and the question is, do they get paid? Saquon Barkley, the biggest name on the list. The Texans could be interested. Many teams are going to be interested. The Chargers, the Cowboys, could they be in the mix here? Josh Jacobs, Derrick Henry, Austin Eckler, DeAndre Swift, Tony Pollard, Devin Singletary, Madison, Alexander Madison, recently released by the Minnesota Vikings. Antonio Gibson's interesting to me. There's J.K. Dobbins, Ezekiel Elliott, Zach Moss, A.J. Dillon. There are a lot of guys on this list. Gus Edwards, Kareem Hunt, Deonta Foreman, who, if they landed in the right spot, would be of interest to me. I'm drafting many of them late in best ball drafts right now. Jacoby and a rookie makes sense to me. The more I hear about this, the more sense it makes. I know Doug Kayed from the Boston Herald had some notes where he thinks they are interested in, their connections to Baker Mayfield, right? Obviously. So maybe there'll be a player there, but I think Jacoby and a rookie makes the best sense to me. Hi, Kevin. Thanks for popping in. Glad you can make it. Hope you can watch the replay later. And I have some worthwhile information from you. And I saw there was a question earlier, and I'm going to just not lose sight of it. On Marvin Harrison Jr. Where'd it go? There it is. Scampers asked this. Is there any combination of landing spots where Marvin Harrison Jr. isn't your top rookie wide receiver? If New England drafted him without having a good quarterback in place, I might be nervous. I think it would be, there's some talk about the Cowboys maybe going with an edge rusher, the Arizona Cardinals going with an edge rusher. At 4 overall. I don't think they will. I think they'll go Harrison. So, I keep hearing like smart people that I know who study this closely. John Laub led the way on this. Malik Neighbors is the top of their class. I don't know that he's the top of mine. I kind of sort these things out. Hey, Andrea, thanks for coming. Appreciate the time. A lot going on in Buffalo this week, Andrea. It's been very busy for them working in that cap, and we'll see a lot of that this weekend. New Orleans Saints still have some work to do. Yeah, this would be a concern for me, right? Like, the Patriots have had bad luck drafting wide receivers. Wouldn't it be nice to have a good quarterback for them if they're going to do that? But I really believe they would have Brissett or somebody. They would have landed somebody if that's the move they made on Harrison. So, yeah, well, Andrea up in the Buffalo area. So yeah, a lot of big names out the door there. Is Mitch Morse the center? That was, and we'll see what the Saints end up doing. The Chargers have some work to do as well. Got a lot of money tied up in receivers and whatnot. We'll see if Austin Eckler moves on. Some of these landing spots, I know we did at Sirius. I'll just read you off my list of the players that let me bring it up. I know I can do it. I thought I could do it. There's a better way to do this. Wow. Should have thought that out a little better. We did predictions, the whole, all the football staff. Seemed like it was only yesterday yet. I can't find it. There's been a lot of drafts. Wow. Okay. I have my list somewhere here. Let me get that. All right. I guess I can't find it anywhere. Holy smokes. All right. I found it. That was, and I'm sure the juice is going to be worth the squeeze here. Holy smokes. What a mess. I'm going to do a decent live stream at some point. I'm honest to God. I'm like legit pissed off right now that I'm doing such a crappy job on these. Jiminy Christmas. Okay, so Justin Fields, I predicting going to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Kirk Cousins, I have going to the Falcons. Calvin Ridley is one that's out there. He's the top of the free agent class. I have him going to the Carolina Panthers. Saquon Barkley to the Texans. Gabe Davis to the Cleveland Browns. Been some talk of that. Mary Kay Cabot. Baker Mayfield, I have staying at home now that we have Mike Evans back there. Derrick Henry, wish casting, Baltimore Ravens. Josh Jacobs, I have him staying at home. Don't know that he will. Could he be a Cowboy? Yes, that seems possible. I have Tony Pollard going to the Eagles, but he also could remain a Cowboy. If you have any thoughts on any of those, I'd appreciate it. Well, evidence to the contrary. I'm like, sometimes you just got to own it, man. I feel like, like I'm giving myself a little leeway here in March. There's a lot going on. I'm just getting back up to speed and get my writing on point. And again, you can see my fantasy notebook every week. I'm doing instant reactions at Football Guys too. If you go there, footballguys.com. We have a whole player movement page, and I've done a ton of instant reactions on all the players, all the major moves so far. Again, I've got articles up on Russell Wilson, Michael Pittman, Mike Evans, T. Higgins, even Demarcus Robinson and Jonnu Smith. Jonnu Smith's interesting. Like he's an interesting piece. Like you think a guy going into that offense, I mean, everyone, like somewhere in the back of your mind, you're thinking, oh, a George Kittle role. I don't think he's got a George Kittle, role in him, but pieces that can be effective in that offense are kind of interested. Hunter Henry back to the Patriots. That'll be way more interesting when we know who the quarterback is, I think. All right. So boy, all the pieces this week. So, throw out some questions if you have them. If you have some, you saw my predictions, so throw out your predictions on those players or any players that you think need a landing spot or have landing spots that you're most interested in. And we'll see, the free agency will kind of inform us of what direction some of these teams are going to take in the draft or are likely to take in the draft. And I'll be interested to see that, but it's going to get crazy. We'll have all the action noon Monday, and then Wednesday they all become official. There'll be moves throughout the week, and but it just seems like the high end of this class, and I guess the running backs are going to be interesting because are any of them going to get paid? Do they realize they're not going to get paid? Saw the workout videos of Derrick Henry out there floating around out there this week. It's called advertising, people. He looks like he's still got a good year left in him. I know I saw someone else talk about that on Twitter. I totally agree. I think he's got one more good year. I hope he lands in a team that makes heavy use of him and runs the wheels off, assuming, we're drawing to the end of this whole thing. Just let him run amok. See what the Los Angeles Chargers do. That's going to be interesting. I mean, they might be a surprise player. We all know the Jim Harbaugh, Greg Roman duo. I've discussed this a little bit, but I think, two things. We may be overplaying this. Justin Herbert's going in early best balls as like quarterback 10, maybe 11. I think some of that's based on the fear that it's going to be a super run heavy offense. Look, Jim Harbaugh is at least a reasonably intelligent man. He knows what good players are. He had a good quarterback at Stanford named Andrew Luck. They threw the ball, right? It's not like they're going to go exclusively run. They did. I know they were run heavy in San Francisco. That's probably his desired outcome. But whatever the case, he'll need a running back to help pull that off. Do they want to do that in the draft? Do they want to do that in free agency? We'll find out. The new cap money that came in, the cap was, they got extra money. They got that $255 million or whatever, which was well above what the expectation was. So that's given some teams some leeway. I think that's why you saw T. Higgins get franchised. So that'll make a difference as well. We'll see, man. I'm super excited. I mean, this is always a really this coming week. The week of free agency is probably my busiest week every year. The moves just come fast and furious. But I just feel like the high end talent, especially at wide receiver, is just has been wiped out. We're going to see guys go, but I mean, how enthusiastic are we going to be? Buffalo Paper has Derrick Henry going to Buffalo. I think we're going to see a lot. I think there's a lot of good landing spots for Derrick Henry. I will say that all the, James Cook going at around quarterback 12. Let me pull up my best ball ADPs here. That would be interesting because he's definitely getting drafted. I don't want to say I've been all in on him, but I've been more in on him. Running back 17 on best ball 10s, which haven't been playing as long. Let's see what the deal is on Underdog, where I think he's been going a little higher. Running back 11 on Underdog. So he's going as a running back 1. A Derrick Henry landing there would make that kind of not ideal for everyone who's already invested. But that's some of the fun of drafting early, right? That's why we're doing it. And there will be the Football Diehards radio program today. We'll be starting up 2 drafts, a super flex and a regular. Royal Slade, you're not allowed anymore. You'll steal my Anthony Richardson shares. You're totally allowed. But we'll do a super flex and a regular draft. I still have 0 shares of Anthony Richardson. 0. Hey, Pigskin Panic. Good to see you. Appreciate you coming. So yeah, Derrick Henry is going to be a big one. All these running backs. I mean, I just you think of the possible landing spots. I think the money is going to be a huge factor, and some of the teams are going to look at the guys that got paid last year as validation. Miles Sanders, was the top paid guy, and there are going to be other guys like Joe Mixon. Could Joe Mixon be available here? He reworked his contract last year. That sounds like they'd want him to rework it again. Is he going to be willing to rework it? Would he look good in a Dallas Cowboys uniform? Yeah, safeties this year, man. It's not safe to be a safety, apparently, this offseason, unless you're Tyrann Mathieu. Then you stick around. So interesting, just so much intrigue, but the intrigue has got to be the running back position, because who is going to pay these guys and how much are they going to get paid? Right? Like Saquon Barkley, I think, is still, the premium piece here, but Josh Jacobs, Derrick Henry are not chopped liver. Austin Eckler, somebody going to get a great discount on him. Tony Pollard. So I wonder about, in particular, on Eckler and Pollard, how much the injuries were a factor for their performances, or a factor in their performances last year. I think it's fair to believe. In Pollard's case, I know he said that was the case, right? He said the injury slowed him down. Eckler, I don't think has really said that, but obviously, the high sprain early on, he had to deal with and work through. So some concerns there, maybe alleviated if he's fully healthy. Maybe he can show teams. I know this is the time of the year for workout videos, and we've seen them all floating around, right? Which I think is interesting. It is. It's just advertising. You see these guys putting these things out here, but you look at the top end of the, of the running back ranks, and I mean, these guys could fit in there. Tony Pollard, if he was back on point, I mean, I don't know if it was as much the way the Cowboys used him, but he obviously wasn't, his prior explosive self, right? He'd never hit those, those high end speeds that he had hit the season before. And the argument or the question to me is that a function of the role that Mike McCarthy asked him to play as the primary back? Could we see Ezekiel Elliott back there and reform that tandem at a much lesser price, right? You're not going to be paying, premium money for Tony Pollard. You're not paying that franchise tag money you paid last year. You're not going to be paying premium prices for Ezekiel Elliott. Could they put that band back together again? Entirely possible. Could be Pollard and somebody else. Entirely possible. Josh Jacobs, Joe Mixon, Derrick Henry, any of those guys. Jerry Jones says he's going to make a big splash. Interesting. If you heard Rich Eisen this week talk a little bit about, the plan at quarterback. I mean, they need to greatly to get Dak a contract extension. He counts like $59 million. It sounds like Jerry Jones is ready to pay all that and see what happens, so he's not on the hook beyond, right? Like to give himself a little leeway afterwards if things don't work out. Sounds like he's putting Dak on the spot. So that could be interesting and maybe be a limiting factor in what they can do in free agency. So I'll be interested to see. Running backs are going to be cheap, though. I mean, is Saquon Barkley going to get, that high end money he's after? I mean, someone's going to pay him close probably to the franchise tag. He's the one to me that might make some money. The rest of them are going to be struggling. I think Ramondre Stevenson has ended up on I want to say I've got like a handful of drafts ongoing. I have drafted him like in multiple drafts. I think he's an overlooked, forgotten piece, right? If Alex Van Pelt coming over, paying big money for alongside Miles Tepper, I think, I wonder if Sanders isn't a guy that's maybe in line for a little bit of a rebound. We'll see. I mean, I'm still think Chuba Hubbard's the guy to draft there, but my mantra this year and every year, everybody at the right price. There might be a price where Miles Sanders is hard for me to pass up. I do think Ramondre Stevenson, though, has been pretty reasonably priced as well. And I'm going to jump back in. I know he wants to be the feature back. We don't know if he will, but Alex Van Pelt coming back from Cleveland, they knew how to run the ball there, right? So I think that's interesting. Stevenson right now on Underdog is running back 19, going after the likes of Tyjae Spears. Like if Alvin Kamara stays a Saint in this Clint Kubiak offense, I think this is good for him. Aaron Jones after Derrick Henry, after Josh Jacobs, Kenneth Walker, Rashad White. I mean, I like him. When you hit that point, the guys going right after him include David Montgomery. I like Stevenson maybe a little better. I mean, there are moves to be made, I suppose. Nick Chubb, don't know what his future holds, short term, early part of the season. Tony Pollard, Austin Eckler, Najee Harris, James Conner. I love James Conner. On Best Ball 10s, we can see what the price is. I don't think it's much different there. I want to say running back 23. That's like crazy value. Devontae Williams is another guy I've been grabbing, maybe a second year removed from that knee injury. He's going to be a reasonable value as well. So I do like him. And that's going to be the key. Are they going to focus on the passing attack? I would think that would make sense. You look, I mean, bringing back Hunter Henry, who was having a great season, ended up getting hurt. But considering a great season, let me rephrase that. In the context of an offense that was ranked near the bottom in every passing category, Hunter Henry was like a serviceable play for a brief period of time. So a great season in relation to what the offense was doing. I think, it sounds like they'll let Pharaoh Brown and clearly Mike Gesicki will move on. He can come move in with me. Clearly, I'm Mike Gesicki's biggest supporter on earth. Somewhere out there, Mike Fiala is giggling endlessly at my love for him. So yeah, I think Jerry Jeudy to Cleveland. I've heard some of that discussion, like a trade. I've heard some talk about a trade. That would be interesting. But yeah, I think Ramondre Stevenson is a guy that I'm ending up getting. I don't know that I'm targeting him, but there comes a point in drafts, especially depending on how I build, where he starts looking really appealing, because I do think that the volume is going to be there for him. Oh, did that just happen? I hate it when stuff happens during live streams. Honest to God, man. That ruins my job, makes me look stupid. Ugh. Thank you for that. I wish nothing happened when I did live streams, because now it's going to be very difficult for me to focus, because I should be writing an article about this. Give me 1 second. So. This is not my favorite time of year. For this reason, you can't plan anything. You can't do anything this time of year. For a 5th and a 6th round pick. I had heard that this was a possibility. Well, that kind of puts the kibosh on the Gabe Davis. You try to time things out. Like, so here's a little slice. Mims maybe trending up, right? Maybe trending up. Try to decide. You have responsibilities, and then you do things you do because you want to do them. And so I'm going to finish this live stream, obviously, but this is the thing. So every day this week, like, I'm supposed to write instant reactions, like, how instant is, it's a relative thing. But so I can sit here all day. I can be in front of a computer 20 hours a day, and I normally am. But I go to step up to my Peloton this week. Every single development that happened like dead in the middle of a Peloton ride. It's almost like they're watching me. I know they're not. That's silly, but it's just like it's all. And I think it's just because things happen so much, right? Like, I'm always doing something. Oh no, Cedric Tillman. I think that ship has sailed. But it's almost like that. Like, like whenever I step away from the computer, or I jump into like a live stream, or I start recording a pod, or a show starts. But I guess I do those things a lot. So, and there's just always something going on. So it's probably more that than anything else. But it's just like a little interesting slice of life, I suppose. Like, I sit here and complain that I have like the coolest job on earth, and I sit here and complain about it. Wow. So you knew those guys, though, one of those guys was going to be going somewhere. right? Like they've been talking about it. Does that open up the door for Mims? They just did a new contract for Tim Patrick to make sure he's still around. And will he play? Will he be effective? I don't know. It's been a little while since we've seen Tim Patrick, but they seem to think so because they like eased up the cap number a little bit. But they've been talking about this for a little while. Cleveland Browns landing Jerry Jeudy. I feel like a change of scenery is obviously needed for Jerry Jeudy, right? Let's go from there. Let's just look at the numbers on Jerry Jeudy. I'm just checking some details on the pick that are coming in. Sorry about that. We've had so many expectations for Jerry Jeudy, and we look at the final numbers. I mean, his rookie season, 113 targets, caught 52 of them, 856 yards. 2022 had the 100 targets, caught 67 of them, 972 yards. Had 6 touchdowns that year. But I mean, we're looking at a guy with 52, 38, 67, 54. Injuries have been an issue. Started 14 games as a rookie, 5 in 2021, had the bad ankle thing. 14 in 2022, 11 last year. Started out with the ankle issue, or was it a hamstring? What was it in 2021 that sidelined him? I just can't get. I haven't been able to get on board. And like, it's not like Cortland Sutton has been orders of magnitude better, right? Cleveland got ripped off again. So I was just looking at the compensation. So the Broncos saved $12.9 million on their cap. So the trade can't be processed until the new league year, obviously. So I guess Cleveland tried this last year. It's always got to be something. A little more fodder to talk for on the radio show. I'll be on with Mike Dempsey today. I'm sorry, I'm like totally lost track now because I feel like I should be doing my job, and I just so frustrating. Let's see. Cleveland depth chart now. Amari Cooper. What does that do? I mean, like I'm just looking. I'm kind of like gauging the values of some of the other players. I haven't seen Elijah Moore being drafted very much. I don't think people have been in on him, but I think it's more been an expectation that they're going to bring somebody in. So you've got the current depth chart: Cooper, Cedric Tillman, Elijah Moore. After that, I mean, there's nobody. David Bell, I suppose, is a guy that people still have some hopes for, but James Prochet, a free agent, Marquise Goodwin, never able to get anything done. After that, a bunch of just guys. So that hurts Tillman, and it can't be great news for Elijah Moore. Can't be great news. And what does that do in Denver? It does open the door for Mims. I know Sean Payton talked about it a little bit, right? Like, he was asked directly, like he seems to like him an awful lot, but didn't use him very much. And he kind of said, well, he turned out to be a really good return man. Well, is that really why you want to keep him off the field? There were times where he looked like, their best playmaking athlete, and they just couldn't get him the time. I just look up some of those quotes. Sean Payton mentioned last week they wanted to get Marvin Mims more involved, but he couldn't play him over Jeudy or Sutton. So I think the general perception is Marvin Mims is going off the board, right? Going off the charts. But what is Jerry Jeudy? I mean, is anybody sold on Jerry Jeudy turning into a thing in a new location? Or like, I mean, I think he's defined himself. Scampers thinks it affects Njoku the most. I mean, does that affect Njoku any more than the change of quarterback? Probably the change of quarterback is as much of a limiting factor there for me. I mean, Njoku kind of, I think we're all drafting him for that late season run, but was that Flacco or Njoku or so I think we'll have to see what Deshaun Watson is. I think it should impact him, but I think he should already be impacted. I don't think Amari Cooper is already cheap. Elijah Moore is going far down the picks. Are we believing in Deshaun Watson? Are we trusting Deshaun Watson to finally turn into Deshaun Watson? I'm not. I kind of played that card last year and drafted him like that. Andrea's a wait and see. I felt like last year, you were being. I felt like I was being a little edgy, like saying, okay, I get him as a, jump a little bit on him. Maybe even if I had to get him as my quarterback one, could still get the steady Eddie after him, which is, the tested and true and tried approach. I think that's a great way to do it. That was not a great, obviously great outcome. And I just wonder if the ship has sailed on him, or can he rehabilitate his career, his on-field career? That's the question to be seen. Interesting changes. There'll be probably more of these. I don't know. Trades, these kind of trades that, let's see. These makes happen, Landing Judy. Huh. Boy, I've seen a lot of this. Like, the original reports, not like a complaint. I just think it's interesting how the agents are becoming more prominent. I'm reading Ian Rappaport's. Jerry Judy's agent at Chris Cabot of Equity Sports worked behind the scenes to make this happen. I know you saw a couple of tight end signings single out an agent, literally like advertising for the agent on these tweets. So, you don't want to source guess, but make it a little easier. All these agents send out group texts to the insiders, and you can see that they're all just pasting in the exact language, courtesy of this great management work of this agent, which, look, they're looking to recruit players. It makes perfect sense. I just don't know if it's a good look. I'm not trusting Watson. I think I agree. I agree with this. And even like the backfield situation with Nick Chubb, the uncertainty, clearly he's not going to be himself early this year, is he? Is Nick Chubb Superman? Are we going to buy into that notion when we see time and time again? I want to say Breece Hall last year was probably as good outcome as you've seen in a little while of a guy coming off an ACL. He got off to a fast start, but even that was uneven. Javonte Williams, I think, who looks like he's in a better place this year, could be a little bit of a value. I think he's going at the right price, but not 100% sure. Jaleel McLaughlin's there as well. Is Jerry Jeudy going to stay healthy? That's a big question mark too. That has not been his lane. Super interesting to see how that's going to play out. Craziness. All right, we got about 15 more minutes here for me to get through before I can. So then the race will be on. Do I get an article done before I go on the radio? I have 2 hours. I could probably kick it out. All right, let's look at a couple other newsy things here. If you have any questions, throw them in the chat. I feel like I've just totally wasted all your time today. A couple other stories we're looking at. Aaron Rodgers says he wants to play a number of more years. I tend to be injury agnostic. I talked about a draft I did earlier this year where I had someone sniped out from under me, and I picked up Jerry Jeudy, just because I felt like it was a panic pick. I'm thinking this is the least positive outcome of all, right? Jerry Jeudy is the last guy. It wasn't a bad price, and he's a starting wide receiver, and I like all those things about him. I just don't have a great feeling about him. I think he's been an overall disappointment, but definitely not because of the injuries, but just I don't like the player. And whether it's been his roles, the bad luck in his roles, the quarterbacks he's played with, changing coaching staffs has been an issue, right? There have been multiple things. He's just not a guy that appeals to me. I'd much rather draft Cortland Sutton, who probably shouldn't appeal to me that much either. But, and especially last year, I don't want to overstate last year's performance because it was so touchdown dependent, but he seems like he could be that guy. And thank you for all the kind words, but I need to do a better job of this, honestly. But I think the Jeudy just not a guy that I find super appealing. I don't, maybe he can change all that with a single year of performance. I don't know if Cleveland, though, is the place where I expect it to happen. Probably the shares I have of Jerry Jeudy, which came in a panic pick, a single share so far, in a panic pick after Brock Bowers got yanked out from under me. I thought I was going to be super smart really late in the draft. I'm going to get Bowers right here. He went right before me, and I went just a total panic pick and just grabbed the first guy in the queue, and it was Jerry Jeudy. This is why we draft a lot, people, so you don't get those guys that are your Jerry Judys, right? Like we all have those guys that, man, I wish I didn't take him. I wish I didn't take him. I'm like, and honestly, so I got auto picked a couple times, and I got Tony Pollard, and I feel like, man, I wouldn't have drafted him, and I didn't like the way those drafts were going because I got auto picked on those two, and now I feel a little better about it. It's not going to happen with Jerry Jeudy. Yeah, Tim Patrick was a guy I had a ton of investment in, last year. I always do. I think he's like a really good player, who's also had some bad luck, and it seems like all the coaching staffs like him. So that'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see where he's at. I mean, do I even expect him to be full speed? What was it, an Achilles last year? So that's going to be tough on him. Oh, that's crazy. What else happened while we were talking? Nothing too exciting. All right, throw any questions you have in there. We can get through them. And again, I'll be on the radio at 3 p.m. Eastern time today. Me and Dempsey will be starting up 2 drafts. We'll have Armando Marsal on. A couple beat writers. I don't know who's going to be with us today. Let's see who the guests are today. Besides Armando Marsal, who I know will be with us. We'll be covering, I think we're covering the next 2 teams in the draft. And so that was Arizona and who last week? Let's see. Oh, we've got Joe Reedy to talk Chargers and Chris Pisignano to talk Giants. So we're going with the 5th and 6th picks overall. Be interesting. Are the Giants going to draft a quarterback? Seems like that's gaining momentum. Lamar and Andrews for Burrow in a dynasty league. Too much. Yes, it is for me. I mean, just like standalone, I'd rather I might prefer Lamar to Burrow. I mean, there is, like, we talked a little bit about this, on the last live stream, where the running quarterbacks kind of their effectiveness as runners tends to be limited over time, and Joe Burrows does. But I think that's too much for sure. And I'm guessing this is a 1 quarterback league, so that'd be too much for me. I'd rather keep that duo and try and work it out. Maybe draft a young quarterback over, at some point in time to, and take a couple shots on young quarterbacks. But I think that's just too steep. I mean, I think, like, right now for me, Lamar for Burrow, I'd almost not want to do that. I mean, it's kind of a matter of personal preference. Concerts or Us. I like that name. I think it's a matter of personal preference, like on an even thing, but I think it should be an even thing. Like if you're trading with someone who likes Burrow a little more than you do, or likes one of those players a little more than you, and you like the other a little more than them, I think that 1 for 1 is fair. I don't think it's a 2. I think the 2 for 1 is way too much. Even a draft pick, like even a late draft pick would be too much for me. I think this is a straight up trade if you're going to do it. So I hope that helped that out. We'll see. I'm interested in hearing about the Giants though today, because they need so much help. Are they going to grab a quarterback early? That's been the talk. Maybe they go quarterback at 6, and Daniel Jones still going to be there for a year. That doesn't mean he has to play, but he's going to be there. The money says so. And the Chargers, I mean, did they go Brock Bowers? There's been some talk about that. Like, I've heard some crazy talk, like maybe they draft JJ McCarthy at some point. He's not lasting long enough. I mean, they're not drafting him that early. He's not lasting long enough. I know Cecil Lamb thinks the Broncos will take him at 12 if he's still available. The Vikings might need a quarterback. JJ McCarthy, the Michigan quarterback. I know if you look at the Football Guys draft guide, they'll talk about his ideal scheme fit is in that McVay, Shanahan kind of scheme. So that's what they run to Minnesota. Denver, not so much, but probably could figure that out. Sounds like they like him an awful lot. But there's a string. There's 3 teams. There's that 11, 12, 13 run where all 3 teams need quarterbacks. It's Minnesota. And Minnesota should probably draft a quarterback even if they get Cousins back. Giants are in desperate needs of some really good wide receiving help. Maybe they should have traded for Jerry Jeudy while I was doing a live stream. I almost swore. Yeah, right. McCarthy. So totally could go anywhere from 3 to 15. How much of this, like, I am not the draftnik, so how much of this is based on Jim Harbaugh saying he's the best quarterback in the draft? By the way, Hub Arkush from Pro Football Weekly is of the same opinion. Also a Michigan grad, so there's that. But he thinks he's the best quarterback in the draft. He thinks the Chicago Bears, should not take a quarterback one. They have the 9th pick also. And that McCarthy would be an ideal fit for that. They just brought in Shane Waldron, who from the McVay tree was the tight ends coach of the Rams before he went to Seattle. So, but I'm with Pigskin Panic, man. They need some wide receiving help there. Jalen Hyatt's a guy to watch this year, though. Sounds like they're going to play him. I know the talk from the combine, I think Matthew Berry put this out too, is that Hyatt, is a guy that's going to maybe play in his more natural position. I've been drafting some really late round shares of him. Prior to that, this kind of encourages me further, but it seems like that team's been a knot of slot receivers. Can they find a big outside guy that can maybe get a little something done? Teams love McCarthy's leadership qualities, apparently. Yeah, and I mean, it's another, do they look and say, like we've seen other Michigan quarterbacks, farewell, said Tom Brady. He's really, but that's when he really hit my radar, is when Harbaugh talked about him. And then you started seeing other people talk about him a little more. And the buzz is definitely growing for him. And I'm with you. Royal. I think he doesn't get out of that. He definitely doesn't get out of the first half of the draft. And we'll see which of these teams takes a chance on him. I know I've been watching some of the mock drafts again. Like, what do you guys think of are you all really into the draft? You love the intrigue part of it? I do not. I'm not going to lie. I've got enough work to do where I don't need to sit here and play guessing games about people. I'm perfectly satisfied to let it play out, and however it ends up is however it ends up. I get it why fans would like to discuss oh, he should land here, or oh, they should do this or they should do that. Honestly, I don't care. I just get it done. Once it's there, I can start assessing and, figuring out what the fantasy values of all involved are. Playing the guessing games, 99% of everything we hear this time of year is going to end up being for naught, or have gone for naught, and all the energy that goes into this. And again, there's an entire industry based on this, and they do a great job of, working through all this, and good for them. Royal Slade loves the draft. And I mean, I get it. I get why people do. For me, there's a big chunk of this, in the middle of this is the free agent period, which is way more interesting to me because it requires a bunch of work. And it's like there's a tangible outcome in my hand. Whereas the draft, I don't get that tangible outcome until they draft, right? And I'm in dynasty drafts where we will draft before the draft. So yeah, I mean, I have to have some understanding of the players and what's going on. And so, I try to gain all that. But for the intrigue, all the drama part of it, man, I'm not as big a fan of that. It's just it eats up so much bandwidth. And you dial into your X machine, you're going, oh my gosh, okay. I mean, I see all this and just the arguments over how good somebody is not, incrementally. Okay. Well, I'll wait and see what the teams think about them, and they'll tell me that when they spend draft capital on them. That's there's two. That's what the old saying is. There's two times when teams are telling the truth: when they spend money and spend draft capital. That's when you know how they really feel. Up until that point, we don't know a damn thing. They're lying to us mostly. I do think the scouting combine, though, is good for that. When every coach, they start planting some flags at the scouting combine. That is the one thing I love about the draft process. The scouting combine press conferences, you find out a lot about a team's intentions, the language they use. You'll find out a little bit more about that in the notebook this week. But, you just listen to what they say. I mean, when Matt Eberflus was asked about, what they're doing at quarterback. Well, if Justin Fields is our quarterback, well, if we're at this point in time and you're saying if he's your quarterback, he's not your quarterback. And you could say the same thing. I mean, Sean Payton was way more definitive, and we saw how that played out. But I mean, he talked about, hey, this next one, we got to get this next one right, is what he said about quarterback. Well, I pretty much told you that it wasn't going to be Russell Wilson. I mean, we all knew that, but that was a pretty overt admission of something that teams don't normally admit. And that's the thing, the whole process for me starts at the scouting combine. Not, I watch the rookies and it's all exciting. Okay, great. But more, it's what are these coaches saying And this is where you start setting the baseline, right? Like you listen to what they say, and then you can start following along and seeing how their actions match up or not with their words, right? That's to me always the key for everything. I'm looking for differences, changes, differences, things that what's new here, what's different, what's not happening, more so than what's happening, right? But what's happening informs you as well. Like if a coach says, "Hey, this is what we think of this guy," like you'd heard a lot of talk. Well, we want to keep Mike Evans, and boom, they keep Mike Evans. So you can kind of measure along and watch if what they're saying matches up with what they're saying, what they're doing. And that's my favorite part about the scouting combine. And this time of year is more like, okay, who's playing straight, who's not playing straight. But I think the thing you find out about the draft itself is nobody's playing you straight. They're all lying until they make their picks. I will tell no more lies. I'm going to go out and do some work so I can feel better about myself and feel like I'm not slacking off on my job. Hopefully, there will be less things happening. This like happens during the season all the time. There's developments because it's inevitable. I'm a little better mentally prepared to handle them. When a big story breaks right in the middle of a live stream, it's crush it. So I apologize for letting the steam out. Appreciate you all coming. We'll have a Wednesday afternoon. I'll go ahead and commit to it now, even though I know many, many things will be happening, but hopefully many of the things will have happened, and we'll be discussing things that happened. It'll just be the official word will be coming out. Again, the timing on that is you have the noon Monday kickoff of the legal tampering period. And then we'll follow that up with the start of free agency Wednesday, a couple hours after we do. I think it's 4 p.m. Eastern. We'll start the live stream at 7. There'll be a lot of news coming out and a lot of things going on. So anyway, thank you all for coming. Thank you for spending the time with me. And I promise at some point I'm going to do an organized version of this where I just don't sit here and like stutter and stammer and try to find information. And like I should just do my job. All right, everybody. We'll see you next time. Thanks for coming.